Hey everyone, the Manly Stanley Standpie here with another Attack on Titan recap and analysis video, this time for Chapter 91. Attack on Titan Chapter 91 was a very big departure from what we've been used to in Attack on Titan. So much so that I think before I go into the chapter itself, I need to explain what's happened between these two chapters, as we have a time skip on our hands. So let's start by saying what happened at the end of Chapter 90. As we talked about in the last episode, Eren and the crew finally reached the ocean. But what also happened along those lines was Zeke and Reiner escaping, likely returning to the mainland, having to report the fact that they not only lost their mission, they failed, but they lost Annie and Berthold, which means they lost the powers of the female and Colossal Titan. This is very important because this information gets out from the Marley Empire, and it gets known well enough to the rest of the world that it leads to a war. Now this war is a struggle for power way beyond the scale of the initial island where everything has taken place. This is a big war, the kind of war that's comparable to something like World War II. And I say that especially because of where we are. So in the time period between the end of Chapter 90 and Chapter 91, it's been about 3 years. And it takes us to where we are now. The front lines. New character, Falco. His older brother, Colt. And other characters such as Gabby. These different people are cadets. They're training, but they're not just any cadets. They are like the next generation of elite soldiers to become warriors. And we'll talk about what that means in a moment. But first, let's talk about what is happening. So this entire battlefield scene is what seems to be the turning point in the war. The war's been going on for years, but I guess for the sake of the story, all that matters is this moment. Because this final push in the campaign is going to probably turn the tide of the war in favor of whichever is going to be the winning army. This is significant because we're getting to see just how these cadets are being utilized. If we look back at what this chapter talks about, as we see how these kids interact with each other, they're all soldiers, and they're all training to become the next warrior. The person who will inherit the Titan powers from Reiner and Zeke. Who will become the Beast Titan and who will become the Armored Titan. So this is pretty significant because, obviously, these characters have been around since the start of the Attack on Titan franchise, particularly Reiner as the Armored Titan, but now his successor is being chosen. And these kids are competing. They're being judged to see which of them will get the honor of doing so. This is highly important because we have to understand why they are like this. So it's said a few times, these kids have been trained to become the warriors. And this implies that the Marley Empire heavily relies on well-trained, very obedient soldiers that come from the Eldian blood to be their Titan shifters. Why? Because as it's mentioned, the thing that has made the Marley a superpower of the world superpower, has been the control of Titans. And they have controlled them all along. Until Eren and friends ruined everything. So now, that's why this war is happening. These Titans are themselves extremely rare and important assets. There are only 9 of them, and frankly, a bunch of them are no longer in their possession because they lost Colossal and Female. So now, it's a matter of who's going to be the new successor, and are we going to win this war so we can even get back to what was going on that island, because everything having to do with the main Attack on Titan storyline has just been completely postponed for now. It's because there's a war. Anyway, so we were hearing about these kids, we're seeing what they're all about, and they're kind of competing with each other, and one of them really wants to go above and beyond to prove she is the one to be the next Armored Titan. So much so that she stands up on her own to go fight some armored tank units. Now this is really interesting because if we look around, I mentioned it's like a World War II setting. I like to call it Saving Private Titan. This is entirely different from what we've experienced. In the past we had primitive steampunk technology. This is some straight up World War II trench warfare mixed with explosives, tanks, maybe some World War I. I wouldn't say where I can place the equipment, but it's serious. I'd say the number of trenches, probably World War I. Regardless, we're seeing a totally different side of the world that we never got to see before. And we're also seeing the ideological differences between these characters and the main characters of the story. How they view their place in the world. Example, they're Eldians, just like Eren and friends, but they've been oppressed their entire lives, and these particular kids have been brainwashed into being warriors, right? They want to successfully become tools for the government, for the Empire, to hold its ground and defeat Eren and friends so that they can reclaim their glory and, of course, set the rest of the Eldians who still live in the Marley Empire free from their oppression. This sort of devotion is very dangerous, obviously, especially with young people, because you never know what they'll do. And this character, Gabby, really goes above and beyond to prove it. It's also interesting to see just how this sort of is so separate from the main plot line, because this is a matter of us introducing who the new cast is going to be for the next several chapters, I'm sure. All of the characters that we see here, they get plenty of screen time, plenty of time for exposition, and plenty of time to establish that these kids are important. So much so that 800 soldiers were considered an arguable equal trade in value for one of them. This is significant, obviously, because the Marley Empire still places a great value on their ability to control Titans, but still does not have faith in their own ability to keep them under control unless they have hand-picked exactly who will inherit those powers. Now, another thing we get to check out is we get to see the different kinds of warfare, naval warfare, get to see the incompetence of the different militaries, and seeing the importance of these Titans in the overall world scene, in the political view of the world. It really does make you a superpower. We also get to see the last shape-shifting Titan, the Jaw Titan. It's just a different one we've never gotten the chance to see. This is the last of the 9 Titans. So now we have seen all of them, and this is interesting only because there are no more mysteries in this regard. Everything we're seeing now is just completely new, brand new territory for us to explore. Moving on from this, we can expect the next several chapters to detail different things, but it was cool to see for a split second. We get to see Reiner, now that he's reached what would probably be the end of his life. As we mentioned, the curse of being a shifter is that you die in like 10 years or 9 years, so you have to pass on to someone else and be eaten by somebody, because you're going to die anyway. That's the downside of being a warrior, or being Eren, or Armin, or anyone else who has the Titan shifter abilities. Yeah, you get what you get. Another cool thing to note, though, is that these kids are the best of the best among the Eldian recruits, which explains why Reiner, Bertholdt, and Annie were all 3 able to be in the top 10 soldiers way back when in training. These kids are the best. The absolute best. It's said very clearly that the government puts a lot of money into training these kids to be the next warriors. So this is a really interesting thing to look at. Anyway, with all of this said, I'm excited to see what's going to happen next. I'm looking forward to Saving Private Titan's continuation as we move into the remainder of this war. I'm sure a handful of these kids are going to die. It reminds me of something like Halo Reach, which is like a silly comparison to make, which is we've got these, these super kids who are going to surely die off by the end of this arc. And we're also going to see some interesting ideological clashes. We hear a lot about the cultural differences as far as like the ethnic racism that exists between the Eldian and Marley, as we've heard about before, having to wear armbands to indicate who they are, living in the ghettos. It seems like Isayama has drawn a lot of inspiration from World War II, especially from the Germans. Regardless of this fact, it's just interesting to see how these characters handle that. I'm going to become a shape-shifting Titan and be a warrior so that I can set my people free from this oppression by serving the people who are oppressing us. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Having to ask, can I take off my armband so I can ambush the enemy? These different kinds of questions. It's just interesting to see the differences ideologically. And even though these kids are so great and so well trained, they're still second-class citizens. So that concludes my recap and analysis of Attack on Titan Chapter 91. If you have any questions or your own thoughts on what went down in this chapter, please do go ahead and leave them in the comments section below. Also, let me know just what you thought about the chapter. I really enjoyed it myself. I like the art, I like the overall introduction of these new things, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what's next. Albeit it was very surprising, this world is very different from the world we started in when Attack on Titan first began. Anyway, I'm the Manly Stanley Standpie, and this has been my Attack on Titan Chapter 91 recap and analysis. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to check out some of the other recap and analysis videos I've done for the series, or if you want to see some different kinds of content, I've got plenty of others to choose from here on my channel. Stuff like my character karaokes or my comic dubs, and more. If you like the content you've seen here, please go ahead and give me a like, and also feel free to subscribe so you can be updated whenever I upload new content. I'm always happy to hear what you guys have to say and give me my feedback, so thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll continue to stick around. I'm the Manly Stanley Standpie. Thank you so much for watching.